States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There's a sign up sheet here for people to, do you want to pass that around, for people to sign? Nice. Okay. Jess, our first thing is we have 7:30, 438 King Street site plan. Do you want to just kind of give us an idea what you're proposing to do out there?
Yeah, I'm just proposing to add two storage trailers to the back lot. Extent to it.
That's industrial there, right?
Yes, industrial lead.
You have a little, remove the dumpster, right?
What's that?
Did you remove the dumpster?
Move the dumpster? No. Well, there's a dumpster and two trailers in now.
You're just gonna add another
Add two more.
40 footers?
Yeah,
So it'll be the same, it'll look the same,
yeah,
and two trailers now on one side,
yeah.
so,
And then there'll be two trailers, so you, from the road, you won't even tell if there's three.
and I was curious, what's down by Hillside Ave?
It's
There's
just
a house-
brush and,
You own the house that abuts this too? don't
Yes.
you?
Number 7
number two.
on the other side.
Oh, that's Medeiros is on the other side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're on 2 Hillside, which is right on White Street, the corner of White Street and Hill. So it's a lot in between that one and Whitey Kish.
Oh, okay.
And you own the one right beside it, the one
Yeah,
Nugent a little bit?
yeah.
Board have any questions? But I mean, I've never had an issue about storage trailers. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the nature of having a business.
Right, you need to store things now. I mean, I noticed on here, it talked about proposed stockade fences and this, I guess.
Well, that's an old plan that was before I bought it.
Yeah, you were originally gonna put parking down.
Yeah, originally I was talking about parking, but I didn't end up
Yeah.
doing that, and that's not what I want to do right now.
But
Does Whitey have a problem with the one, because the one owner that's really gonna be affected, it's Whitey Kish's side, right?
Yeah,
The
I haven't
other
heard
two are-
anything from Whitey.
Is there any kind of fencing there now?
There's some sort of fence there, but not a stockade, it's a wire. But there's a bunch of brush and trees. And, I was planning on painting them to make it look a little, indiscreet.
Did you say paint the trailers,
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
That's the only question I was gonna have for you tonight.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, some of those trails can be all, they can look pretty industrial.
Yeah.
And where that's a borderline neighborhood industrial,
Yep.
might be good if they were painted, but if
Yeah.
you're planning on painting them, I'm all set now.
Are you owning them, or you just rent them?
Yeah, I'm gonna buy them.
Yeah.
You can buy them?
I mean, what about the issue of fencing? Stockade fencing is relatively inexpensive. I mean, yeah, there are houses down below, you know, mention the neighbors and so on.
Have you heard any complaints from the neighbors?
No, there are no neighbors here. I see no problem with it. I move to accept it.
I don't, they've been there forever. You've been here for 15 years?
15, yeah.
Is that a motion, Peter?
Yeah.
That's a motion.
Then I'll second that.
All moved. All in favor of allowing another a dumpster and another storage trailer out there, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Told you it wasn't gonna hurt.
All right. Good work, Bob.
So you pay this is like JetBlue, if you pay the extra fee for the leg room, you get a quicker decision. Thank you. All right, you wanna do a little board business while we can, because Washington Drive will not be here, so we have some time to take care of our,
Has Washington Drive been canceled for tonight?
continue to the 14th.
Ah,
Yeah, the
Well, they
engineer
wanna do
wasn't
both-
ready.
both houses. It's gonna be both houses.
Thank you for
they must have gotten green sweater.
Buying both lots.
Yeah.
They tell me.
Are they going to address all the concerns in green sweater?
Yeah, they were meeting over
Oh, maybe emission, the gas mileage.
You got bills for us, Mara? You got,
Payroll are coming. Do you want the brand new bill?
Oh, yeah, you might wanna show the whole, might as well show everybody.
copies for everybody.
Okay, so you guys can't do now. Do we have to surrender our passports? Being silly.
We just have to, what do we do? Just tell the lawyer you can do
Don't
it.
do nothing.
We made
Yeah,
a
you don't have to
decision.
join us.
He gets a ton of money.
So you don't show up and you're in contempt?
And we don't do, yeah, so they're answering it.
It's an A&R. Yeah, we can talk about it if maybe you wanted to talk about it in an executive session.
Probably should.
Since there is pending litigation.
We should probably talk about it.
All right, we can.
Is this something else to remember?
Frame that.
Tom, what is the difference between this and Superior Court? This is Land Court.
Land Court is a division of Superior Court,
Okay.
but they specialize in planning and
Yes,
zoning
yeah.
and real estate matters.
Okay,
So the idea is that they have they're more familiar with the statutes.
excellent. Okay, so that's what I knew they were somehow connected together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
How much time before you, do we have?
On this, they've asked for a speedy trial, but months.
You wanna talk about it after we're done tonight, Bill?
No, you need to put the executive session on your agenda, so if there's no action that you need to
No,
take.
I know. Just pick a day when you're gonna be around.
Okay.
When you come in. You're gonna do the ZBA next week, the 14th?
Mhm.
You wanna do it then, while you're already out here?
Sure.
Does that make sense, Mara?
Yeah, if we could figure out a time.
You wanna do, they start at 7:15. Can we, do you think,
6:45?
can you guys do that? For executives, how about 7? We do 7?
7? Sure.
Next, the 14th of February, 7 o'clock, so we'll do executive session before we go
Isn't
into
that, the flower now?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Good time for executive
Really?
session.
I'll bring candy.
So you go to McDonald's.
Is this a lawyer thing?
So can you do 7?
Valentine's Day. Yeah.
It's when the massacre happened.
7? 7. We'll do executive session at 7, that way since you're already here.
Okay.
Doesn't that make it easier?
Yeah, I appreciate
It's
that.
not complicated.
You are.
Awesome. Anyway, what else we got going on? So, our next meeting's the 14th.
I think, right, we've got 2 public hearings, one for a scenic road request and the other for, Aquifer District special permits for the Beaver Brook water treatment plant. Shelburne Village wants to come in for their final sign off on their site plan, so that they can get the final occupancy permit. Shelburne, White Street, Fields, yeah, too many different names.
Yeah.
On Washington Drive, we'll be back with new plans. And whatever you continue from this week.
Hey, did we ever pass, remember we did we were asked by the selectmen years ago, sort of amendment that we couldn't do any site plans or special permits if people owed tax money to it?
That was a town meeting vote.
Did we win that? I forget.
You,
I
town
think
meeting
so.
passed it.
All right.
You have the option of not granting a special permit if tax title, if not using tax title.
So that thing that keeps coming in and we see it every couple of months, we may wanna make them aware of that. You know what I mean? Okay. I forgot if we ever passed that or not. I knew we were.
Yeah, it was a town meeting.
I've been here 20 years. I can allowed to forget something.
Absolutely.
The failing one.
Yeah. What else? So the 14th,
There's educational classes, the annual Citizen Planner Training Collaborative at Holy Cross is taking place on the 16th of March. I go to that every year. I think it's a worthy cause to go to. I think it has some very interesting planning subjects this year. One happens to be planning and zoning for medical marijuana. We actually were talking about that last week in terms of, since that law is passed now at the state level, we need to plan and create some sort of, with the help of Mr. Harrington here, take a look at our uses in our areas and make sure that if something like this is gonna end up in Littleton, we plan for it in an appropriate manner. So,
The type of ganja you can grow, or
so I would encourage everybody, I've got mine, Maren,
Maui?
Yeah, I agree, it's a worthwhile
yeah.
presentation.
I've
we
seen
both
you there
went last
before,
year.
yeah.
And the presenters are good, plus they not only use of the basics, but they've expanded quite a few other sessions.
We actually had Secretary Bilecki there last year, which gave us an upfront personal audience with him. Very, very interesting and knowledgeable person.
It's also to the benefit of the town that our insurance goes down, because they assume we aren't gonna get sued, but, yeah, maybe if you know more, you get sued as well. Who knows? But the insurance does go down.
I have mine filled out, Mary.
Will
I'll hand it to you
refreshments be
afterwards.
sold? Will refreshments be provided at this?
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
lunch, it's a good lunch.
Yeah, they're not broad.
Brownies and stuff like that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will that go towards our, keep our builder's license?
Probably.
12
Might.
hours?
Might.
All right. What else do we have, Lauren?
State run play of thievery.
Schedule,
Okay.
what do you wanna do for February? Right now, you've got the 14th
Yeah.
scheduled, and then also doing the 28th.
What do we have on for the 20th so far? Because we had decided we were
Nothing
gonna,
so far.
we were gonna start talking about what the impact of the moratorium or the shared systems are gonna have on for the town, so what we can do in the future.
Mhm.
Maybe we should schedule some time for that if we're not gonna be, if we don't have that much going on for that. Did we want to start with the Dutchess, the Fletchers and town and the selectmen about the recreational thing, or do we wanna hold that off till March?
If you're gonna start talking, I would recommend.
I think if we don't have anything scheduled for that, maybe we should start discussing modifying
Recreation.
the extensive recreation and the farm preservation together with the selectmen, so maybe we try to have a schedule with at least one or two of the selectmen for that.
Okay, so.
And Doug, I think, was Doug working on a rough draft or something? To at
You
least give
wanted
us a-
feedback first from the joint,
Okay, so why don't we put that on for that then?
okay.
Since
A couple of other things that are on our back burner that should come
The
forward.
signs,
If we could.
let me guess the sign thing, right?
Taylor Street and the sign, probably in
Taylor-
that order.
Taylor Street.
The overlay,
That's kind of in the selectmen's court right now, when they wanna continue going on with that, we kinda left that up to them, so whenever they wanna decide to pick up the ball with that, we'll be available, how's that? And the sign thing, yes, I know, Richard, you wanna do the sign, why don't we put the sign on there as well? So we spend a little time to talk about the proposed sign bylaw that was done, what, 3 or 4 years ago?
2.
2 years.
Yeah.
Can we do that for the 28th? Okay. We're good now, we have a reason to come. All right.
A lot of work went into that
Continue.
sign bylaw committee, and a good product came out of it.
But our only role is to decide isn't a zoning issue.
Well, we wanna take it, don't we wanna take it out of zoning?
We would need to take it out of our current zoning, because the way it's proposed is to become a town bylaw rather than a zoning bylaw,
General bylaw.
general bylaw.
Right,
Yeah.
but given that it's 2 years ago, maybe someone should quickly go through it and flag
Oh, yeah,
any
well-
issues.
I'll be glad to review it with everybody here, top to bottom.
That sounds good. Yeah, advertise it so people
All right,
realize. it.
Has the sign-in sheet been passed to everyone, anyone in here has it?
Went around once.
One on one?
Okay, so So you want to continue the schedule for the second and fourth Thursdays?
Yeah.
To town meeting?
Second, does that put us in conflict with the ZBA? They're the
No,
third.
they're usually the,
Right, so the second and fourth is good for you guys?
Right. Same for March as well.
Yeah, same for March as well. Peter, that's good for you?
Whatever.
I don't have my calendar with me. Is the second, I'm not back until the 6th of March.
No, that wouldn't be the second, would
So
it?
the second has to at least be 8th or beyond.
Oh, you mean you're gonna miss the 28th?
I will not be here in town on the 28th, that's correct.
So how
So
we
we
do the
can't do
sign
the sign
bylaw?
thing. So we'll do everything else but the sign bylaw.
March 28th?
February.
February 28th.
I might be gone then too, now that I think of it. And what did you say, March 2nd?
No, February 28th.
What did you say about something about the 2nd?
okay, the
Second
second
week.
Thursday, March, that would be the 14th.
You good then?
I think I fly out Friday the 28th. And how many days were in February this year?
28th.
I think I fly out Friday morning, I don't know.
Well, that-
Thursday.
we will be meeting Thursday.
I don't know.
We'll keep it that way.
I don't have my calendar with me.
If it is, it is. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, we have 7:45, continued public hearing, definitive subdivision of the orchards off of Grist Mill Road, 15 Great Road. We have some stuff in front of us. We're gonna do some brief present, I guess we need more seats, huh? Brief overview, and then I think the board's gonna have some questions. Start with the council. Do you wanna make a presentation of anything, you wanna just leave it up to us? Okay. That's fine. So we have before us basically two issues right now. The open space plan that we have in front of us, as opposed to convention, and the tying in of the 40A into the 40B. That's pretty much, I think, what we really need to be discussing this evening. But, do you want to give us a brief overview of where we stand with the tie-ins for the 40A to the 40B as to how we should be approaching and what we should be looking at, just to give us kind of a
Sure.
roadmap, sort of, of
Sure.
where we should be looking.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, Tom Harrington, Town Council. I don't think this board plays a role in the tie-in of the 40A to the 40B. That authority rests with the ZBA under the 40B application. You have two applications before you. One is a subdivision, definitive subdivision. You draw your authority to act on that from state law, Chapter 41, Section 81. Essentially, in short, you look at the construction of the roadway and the sufficiency of the area of the lot and the frontage of the lot. If it satisfies those things as they're detailed in your subdivision regulation, it's an approvable plan. There's nothing in subdivision control about whether or not they're tying into a wastewater treatment plant. I believe in your regulations, you say, show us or explain to us how you're going to handle the sewage, but it's not a decision point, it's just part of the application process. The second application before you is the open space special permit. Okay, you draw your authority to act on that from the local zoning bylaw and from town meeting. So, under that, you have certainly more authority and more discretion to act on that application than you do under the definitive subdivision. Nevertheless, you have specific decision criteria, as is spelled out in 173-100. I'm not going to read them to you, I know you guys are intimately familiar with it, but nowhere in there does it say that the handling of waste is part of your decision criteria. This is much more of an open space, impact on the neighborhood, how the open space looks to you, the layout of the lots, and is it in conformance with the open space bylaw. So I think that, you know, you certainly have important decisions to make, but the guidance for those decisions are found in section 100 for the open space plan and in your subdivision regulations for the subdivision.
What about, and I know what the answer to be, but what about the fact that in our bylaw, it says that the open space can be no less detrimental to the town than a conventional plan? We really don't have anything to gauge it on because in the old days, you gotta understand, we're dealing with a whole new set of circumstances. When this board did all the open spaces previously, we had the fact that this lot had to stand on its own. It wasn't a lot until it perked.
Right.
Okay, now, you're asking this board to kind of forget about what the past was like. We have Delaney Drive, we have Cobb Meadows, we have Gray Farm, to go back on, those were all, every lot out there had a septic system on it, so we had to look at it, that it had a septic system. Now you're telling us we can't look at that. But our bylaw still says that the open space can be no less detrimental. So how do we find out if it's more or less detrimental when you're not letting us look at whether or not perks work? Because if you can only get 21 lots or 22 lots conventionally, you shouldn't be allowed to have more lots by open space. You know what I'm trying to say? We have to have a number to go by.
I do know what you're saying, but that's not the way your bylaw is written. And I understand that that's the way it was enforced, and it makes sense to enforce it that way when the developer is proposing single, septic systems on each lot. But that is not what is being proposed here. And I understand that you're grappling with new issues, and I appreciate that. But my best guidance is that the way that this applicant is handling its wastewater is not part of your decision-making process.
What about the fact that our zoning, and I know it's zoning, says that you can't have a primary use and the primary use and the accessory use have to be on the same lot? That comes into play with this. We've never had this issue before because IBM, their primary and they're all in the same lot.
And I think you're referring to the letter that I wrote
September 11th, yes.
to the ZBA.
Correct.
And so I think that's an issue, but I think that's an issue for the ZBA. The issue, because the accessory use is on the parcel that the ZBA is acting upon, and so it's servicing lots outside of that parcel. So that's a decision that they have to make. But that's not a decision that this board makes. You don't make zoning decisions, and that is specifically a zoning decision. It's, accessory uses and primary uses are zoning decisions. You have your authority under the open space special permit, but it doesn't extend to that sort of thing. The zoning board retains those decisions.
So at the very most we could do is send a strong letter to the ZBA that we would respectfully ask them not to allow the tie. That's
On the
about all.
wastewater treatment facility, yeah, I think you're in an advisory role.
That's all we can do.
Right, now, on the open space plan, you still have your set of criteria that you need to apply.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying
But he
to,
still can't,
go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
we still can't make a determination of whether it's 10 lots or 22 lots because they haven't been perked. So to give an open space, an exact size of what an open space is in relation to the amount of properties being developed, we still don't have that.
Right.
So how can you give them that without knowing this?
Okay, so I guess now I'm gonna ask you to get specific. I want you to show me in your open space bylaw where you think it says they need to demonstrate how many lots perk, and that's going to determine how many
So it
lots they
doesn't
get
say
in the
that.
No,
open
it doesn't
space.
say that. I think it goes to the otherwise unbuildable.
It goes to the.
That's
Right.
when we first started talking about, that's where I think that comes from.
Right.
That's what I heard.
Right, so, and
So,
that,
as it applies just to the open space.
right, so when they are proposing septic systems, that is a tool you can use, but
They're not.
when they're not proposing septic systems, it kind of falls out of the toolkit.
But what happens when you show us a lot that, so in
The
real.
lot that they show you has service to a wastewater treatment facility. So what you're doing is saying, I think the question that you're answering is, can this lot handle its wastewater? Is there treatment for its wastewater? Is there a way for it to dispose of its wastewater? Whether that's through a wastewater treatment facility or a septic system is not necessarily the issue. The question is, can they treat it? They've showed you that they can treat it if they hook in.
But like Peter's trying to say, we're just trying to come up with a number. Right now, they're saying, I believe it's 22 lots, open space that they want, that is no less, I go back to the less detrimental that it says in our bylaw.
The open space bylaw.
The open
How
space
do you
bylaw.
calculate no less
So how do you
than
calculate how many lots? That's the problem that we have right now.
I understand that that's the way you were doing it, and I can try to help you think of ways to calculate it, but what I'm saying is that your bylaw doesn't say every lot has to have a septic system, and if it doesn't perk, you can't construct a house there. And if it did, I don't think that would be legal, because the question is, it's not for the board to say you have to have a septic system. It's for the board to say you need a way to handle your wastewater. If they've provided a way to handle their wastewater, it's a buildable lot. So the calculation goes that if that lot has a way to handle its wastewater, it's a buildable lot. It's easier when there's a septic system, because you can say perk, 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 no perk, no perk. And this, it's like you're assuming that they all perked, because they all have a way of handling their wastewater.
Tom,
Providing that one, the A goes to the B,
Right,
providing that is permitted.
right.
And
But
we
again,
don't-
but that's not your decision, that's.
Right.
And we don't need to know that
No, I know,
upfront when we make the decision.
but let's assume they say no, and if we've given them space, do we
Yeah,
have to take it back?
it says, right, we can approve the open space plan. They can go in front of another board who has a problem with that plan, and then if they requires a site change on their part, they'd have to come back to us. We don't obviate any other board, they don't obviate anything we decide.
And if they don't have access from the 48 to the 40B, and so let's play it out a little bit. So say that ZBA says, we're not going to allow you to connect anything outside the 40B property to the wastewater treatment facility. They're gonna go to the Housing Appeals Committee and appeal that decision. And they're gonna make the argument that that's not a proper decision for the ZBA to make, and so that'll be the next line of defense. Maybe we win, maybe we lose. It's an interesting case, because there's really not, neither side can say, there's the case that wins this. There really isn't a lot of
There's no
case law in it.
precedent.
So it's in my opinion, it's a case of first impression. It's gonna be the first time that HAC looks at something like this. So they may say, okay, town, we support you, you do have the right to hold it within the 40B, or they may say, that's not part of the 40B purview. If they build a wastewater treatment facility under the state regulations, they can hook whatever they want into it as long as they have access to it. So we don't know the answer to that. And so the ZBA is going to decide, and then if the ZBA decides against it, I assume it'll go to HAC, and then HAC will decide. If and when this board acts, right now, they're saying we have a connection to a wastewater treatment facility. If it turns out they don't, they'd have to come back to you.
Right, but, no, I get that, and then I still go back to,
Open space.
well, the open space, and we'll
The
do that.
quality of the open space?
Yeah, well, the quality's one, and we can discuss that amongst ourselves.
Certainly,
And then-
that's part of your decision-making criteria.
But as far as getting back to the 40A and the 40B, when Ed was here and we spoke with, and if you went to the ZBA meetings, his contention all along had been that a 40A should not support a 40B. The 40B should stand on its own.
I agree.
You're not giving us any way, there's no way that we can.
I agree that Ed said that, and I can't speak for him.
Right.
But I don't think Ed ever assumed it was anyone's decision beyond the ZBA.
So the most we can do is send a letter to the ZBA that we really like another look at this. That's about all, that's all. you can-
You're in that way, as an
As an
advisor
advisor.
to the ZBA, you certainly,
So explicitly ask them to deny the waiver, which is.
that's what you want to do, you can do that?
Use, sort of a use variance in a residential area, equivalent of that's a waiver.
Okay, so now, getting back to the open space.
Yeah.
I think Dawn and I have both expressed our opinion that the open space is not the best open space. It's more or less there to protect the spotted salamanders, but in the town of Littleton, we've had very good luck with open space development. The Gray Farm has walking trails, and a lot of pastoral land was left set aside. Delaney
Cobb
Drive,
property, the
Cobb's,
Chase Farm.
Cobb's is probably the best one that we ever did.
It's,
with-
it's a protected
Can I-
resource,
can
basically,
I-
it's like a wet.
Can I go?
Sure.
Since I did it. Cobb's, we preserved Cobb Pond, we have walking trails all the way into, they go all the way through the Yap property up to Frost Wickham. We've got 2 well sites out of that were given to sold to the town at a reduced rate. What we're getting for this one is really not, it's nothing that they're not having to do for the spotted salamanders. So what I've suggested is that in lieu of the fact that nobody really wants to use that land, they're gonna be directed to keep it in its natural state to preserve the endangered species out there, that perhaps we could get, and I suggested $100,000 that the town could use for augmenting the open space that we have, maybe taking some of the passive open space and turning it into active open space, meaning using the money to build active facilities on some of the open space that we already have. I'd like to, and actually that would be setting precedent so that in the future, if we had any further developments that came along and the land was, again, of questionable use to the town for our open space needs, that there would be a mechanism that we could use to augment what we already have, or to purchase open space somewhere else in the future. Do you have a?
Yeah, I do have an opinion on that. So,
Okay.
So, well, I think that if you put it in your decision and say, we'll only approve this if you give us $100,000 for open space elsewhere in town. I think if I had to go to court and defend that, I think I would not be successful. But, I mean,
Okay.
but if the applicant comes forward and says, I wish to enhance my application by making this donation, I certainly think that's something you can consider when looking at the decision criteria.
Well, I think part of the fact is, you make it sound really worse than it was. And what I was trying to say is that the open space is illusionary. We can't use it. We can't put a parking lot there, we can't put trails in there because the spotted salamanders all have to be preserved. So it's not really open space. It's open space that they have to preserve, all right? And I threw that out there, or I'm throwing that out there, that the open space really needs to have a benefit to the town. We can't put a well site there. Delaney Drive has 16 acres of open space that go down to Beaver Brook that's usable by anyone who wants to use it. We also have a potential well site for the future there. The 14 acres of salamander infested scrubland is, we can't even put a parking lot out there. There's no way to access it. Trails are gonna go to nowhere, and you can't walk, you have to worry about where the salamander habitat is. So I don't see that as viable or usable open space. So,
Tom, can you,
Can I just actually just jump in? So let's actually look at your decision-making criteria. Okay, so I'm looking at 173-100. Part A. In an open space development, dwellings and accessory buildings should be arranged in groups that do not detract from the ecological and visual qualities of the environment and are harmonious with the existing neighborhood. The review shall consider whether the size of the planned open space is such that preservation of desirable open space of the vicinity is maximized. So you need to make that decision. I'll jump down to C. The planning board may approve or approve with conditions a special permit for open space development, provided that the board determines that the plan complies with all relevant requirements of the zoning bylaw and is on balance no less beneficial to the town than the development likely without such approvals, taking into consideration the following, among other concerns. 1, preservation of natural resources, especially in relatively large-scale contiguous areas, protection of visual character by having open spaces which are visible from major roads, reduction in length of publicly maintained roads and utilities per dwelling unit served, location of development on-site best suited for such and avoiding environmentally fragile locations, protection of major street appearance and capacity by avoiding development close to or egressing directly onto such streets, contributing to meeting housing need, protection of water resources through careful location of potential sources of contamination. So that's your decision-making criteria. So if you don't think the open space they're offering satisfies some of this criteria, you can deny.
Okay.
So one more thing that I just want to make sure that the board is understanding. They have two applications before you, an open space
And a conventional.
and a conventional subdivision. If you cannot, by denying them the open space plan, does not mean that the definitive plan is also denied. It's a separate application, and you have to act on it, and you have to act on it as per your subdivision regulations. So, I know that you know this, but you're weighing two plans. They put two plans before you. If you don't like the open space, you can deny it. You still have to act on the definitive plan.
I get that. And my point is, has been from the whole thing is that the open space is less than, it's not, I don't consider it an open space. I consider it something they have to do. And in 2 minutes, I'm gonna turn my head that way, and I'm gonna ask the developer if he would be considering cash to the town of Littleton to either purchase more open space or do that in lieu of, because first of all, he has the waiver of the roadway. It's longer than what's allowed and all that other stuff as a way of getting past the fact that we don't want to deal with the national
Because the open
heritage.
space, you don't think satisfies your
I don't think,
criteria.
I'll ask the board, do you think the open space satisfies?
No, traditional, like in the Cobb lands and so on, it was usable community, usable open space, not a protected resource, not a place where you cannot go on to. This is a protected resource. Natural heritage is gonna protect it because the blue spot salamander, endangered species, is resident there.
Okay.
So it isn't usable. So it's out of tradition, what has been done throughout all the past when people have open space bylaws, approvals.
Okay, Peter, what do you think?
Jesus, I lost my mind there for a minute, what?
Do you
No,
think-
I know what you said. I like the open space plan as opposed to the definitive. I think there should be a little more land involved that usable to the town than what they're giving up as something they can't use anyways. So it's no, I'm not looking to punish them, you know, to say, by not getting more out of them. But, you know, again, if they decided that in their infinite wisdom, it'd be nice to benefit the town in a different way than just what they're giving would be nice.
Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, based on the criteria, it sounds like it's open space.
Yeah, the way it sits right now,
The way it's written in the bylaw, it sounds like it's open space.
even though we can't do anything with
It
it.
doesn't say you have to be able to do anything with it.
Well, it's not good if we can't use it as
It
open
doesn't
space.
say that.
Is this anything about the quality of the open space, does it not?
Yeah, it's quality open space, it preserves the salamander.
Desirable
But that's
open
not-
space maximum.
It doesn't say what that means. If you said it has to be, you know, otherwise usable for active recreation, as opposed to what Concom would do with it,
Well, it has
that's
to
a
be,
different
well, it
issue.
has to be donated too, so it has to go to an entity, and
It
only
doesn't
entity-
say that.
But that's what we do with all our open space.
It actually, on that one, it does say
It does say it has
that prior
go.
to the granting of the special permit under this article, the developer shall execute and deliver to the special permit granting authority a binding agreement which may state that it is contingent on the granting of the permit to convey and restrict open space in accordance with the terms of the special
See.
permit. So they do have to ensure
It stays open space.
that, yeah, how they're going to protect it.
So what does that say it has to be used?
No, we can't give it to, we couldn't give it to Park and Rec to do anything with it, because they can't put a ball field on
You
it.
can't.
Yeah, but we could, as open space, we could, so that's
But
not.
that doesn't exist in the way the current plan's laid out.
We have to give it to an entity, and then most entities are not gonna be able to do anything with it other than let it sit in its natural state.
So they can have the salamanders.
We don't want to take on the job of protecting salamanders.
Right, but
That's
we
not-
pretty much agreed in the last meeting that we were gonna approve the open space
I'm
plan.
not saying we're not, but I just want to get the board's feeling of how good they think that open space is. I'm done with you now. Richard?
How many board members walked that land? Because I did, very thoroughly.
Yeah, I've walked it
I'm
3 or
sure
4
you
times.
did too, Don.
I've been out there.
The area that we're talking about, open space, is great open space. There's a small area that's wet, and it's an intermittent wet, but the rest of it is old woodland, oaks, maples, and they're old trees. They're 50, 60-foot trees. It's great for walking. I don't see that as non-open space. I'm sorry.
But if
Four-wheelers?
Well, if you look at the history of what we've done before for open space plans, we have set aside open space either for active recreation or for conservation, and it's been buildable land. It's desirable, it's something that's set aside, and it compensates for the fact that the developer gets to change the dimensions of the housing, so it's usually clustered together. This isn't clustered together that much, but
And it's
it's
also
concession
living
allowing them to
room.
change the dimensions.
No, I understand what you're saying, Don, but that's not how our bylaw reads, and what I saw out there was a nice old wooded area.
But see, we still haven't got to the fact that once natural heritage ways in, they're gonna put restrictions on top of it, so it's not really good open space, it's not usable.
It's habitat. I mean, this,
All right, that's true,
All right.
we agree.
Let me ask the developer, you've heard my suggestion, I mentioned it at the last meeting about the fact that the open space was less than the best open space we've ever gotten from the town, and I guess you gotta deal with what you got. I would like to see if you're amenable to giving us something in,
Yeah, so we've already proposed $50,000 if the open space as opposed to the conventional was approved. We understand that there will be no football field on this land. So the answer is, are we willing to enhance that and provide some additional funds that you can direct any way you want? The answer is yes. I think we'd like to understand that, the plan that we've put forward is the plan that's gonna be approved, that we've asked for some waivers for the length of the road. We'd like to not build a sidewalk.
Yeah, we, Mark Brooks, proponent, and we heard, parking lot, like you spoke, is really not a appropriate location for it. The trails, we also don't think appropriate, but we will tell you that at Conscom, they are talking about those things, and I think whatever trail stuff will happen there anyway, so you guys probably don't really need to work on that. Street trees is one thing. We appreciate the street trees, but our theory of the development is a little different style, where you don't have these big open front yards. And so our plan is to actually leave, where we can, the natural tree line. Yeah, so in places where we leave the trees, I think we'd like to not do the street trees, because to do the street trees, we actually have to cut them down, right, to get the street trees in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one. Lighting, you guys asked us about. We came up with a plan that has lighting, has kind of lamp post lights similar to in Appleby, or I think there's 4 in there. One at the cul-de-sac, one at the beginning, and then 2 equidistant in the middle. It talked about fences around our detention areas, which we think are really big. Really big swales.
Yeah, we do.
They're really, the greatest change in elevation is 3 feet, and most of it's 3 to 1 slope, and so we really don't think it's necessary or appropriate. And so, with knowing that that plan with that design criteria, I think we're open to enhancing our proposal, because we some people think we don't really care. We've been spending the last few weeks working on a construction design, management, operation for these developments. We plan to be here. We do care about Littleton.
All right, so these are actually the basic outstanding issues the board has to weigh in on. The last plan that we have, street lighting, fencing, the fencing issue, the site distance at the entranceway, you're doing the minimum of what our bylaw requires, and Green wanted a state requirement. Pavement transition, I don't think we have a problem with that. The emergency access, if required, we'll have town council work on that one. That should be the latest cul-de-sac is out, which is with the turnaround. In the use of open space, how we wanna do it, and the extent, and the length of the roadway. So,
So just to be clear, with the cul-de-sac plan, there is no emergency access.
that is the circle.
It's
Yes.
just the circle.
Remember, we made it big enough, so, and we
Right,
had
so
the fire department go out
right,
and
okay.
actually measure it to make sure it satisfied them, even though it's bigger, like we think that the bylaw.
So the lights, I have a question on lights. Did you say, and the, what are they gonna be, just like a pole light out, 2 pole lights and one on each end of the road?
They're really lamp posts, 12, I think, they're either be 12 or 14 feet high, I don't know.
But they're not associated, like the homeowner doesn't control whether they're on or off.
That's correct, they're in
Oh, they're standalone.
in the right of way. And that's up to you guys, the design so we can actually block it, there's 4 sides to them, we can block off one side, so if it happens to shine too much into someone's house, and so we can control that, the direction of the lighting.
How tall are they? Just like-
They come 12, 14, 16. I noticed the ones in Appleby or maybe are 16, they look a little high at 16 at lamp posts, but in most of the subdivisions, they're open to 12 feet high.
We'll be lighting those the town.
Yeah, be part of the town would take it.
Right.
I leaving the trees up that are there, as long as you don't like, one huge pine in the middle of the thing.
No, what we normally do is when we approve it, we put it subject to the approval of the planning board, so they have to come in with a final kind of design that shows us what they're keeping and what they're going. We get to look at it
Because I think
again.
in the language in the Green's letter, they basically we would just have the tree warden
Yeah.
look at it and approve it, and then we.
Or-
How do you feel about sidewalks, Jimmy? I kinda like sidewalks and
Sidewalks is something that I would have a hard time
Giving up on.
because we're promoting pedestrian friendly all over the town.
And we talked about the width of the road, it's 22 feet, and then because with the cul-de-sac and the fire department would like 24, so our sense is of the way, and Bill, maybe you answer this better than I would, is that our theory is that the road is a pedestrian-friendly road, and not just a sidewalk, that people, it's gonna be a.
It's a dead-end street.
But still, people have an interest in sidewalks.
And our, not to interrupt, but also, in the past, you've kind of said, okay, if you don't do the sidewalks, then, it's a contribution issue, so that's what we feel like we're proposing.
Well, yeah, but there's two different. One of them is the open space. That's the gist of it. So, that's the
Sort of fundamental.
the fundamental one. The sidewalk thing is kind of another issue. The fundamental that I can't get past is that I'm not real thrilled about it. And like I said, if we could use rather than take that off the table and say, we understand that we're gonna have to protect the salamanders anyway, and if the town wants $100,000 to use towards bettering the open space they already have, or putting aside to buy open space for the future, I think that solves that problem. As far as the sidewalks, Gristmill has sidewalks now, correct? So, as a neighborhood and everything else, it probably needs to keep the sidewalks. I don't have a problem with making the roadway smaller.
what do you mean smaller?
We would
Going to 22, so.
Going to 22 instead of 20.
except I think we end up with a problem with the fire department, so we
It's
appreciate
for the
that.
turnaround, right?
No, because what happens is, when you get to the turnaround,
Right, the
it-
90-foot line.
yeah, so you need, and it's snow plowing too, he's afraid that the narrow width, you get the snow piled up in the curbing, and it's a safety issue.
Where's the
So,
write-up?
we've told them we wouldn't do that, so
Yeah.
to be clear.
What you're addressing is harmonious nature, and if there's sidewalks elsewhere.
I really think,
more
well,
consistent.
I think if you have sidewalks in Gristmill, you gotta kinda have it,
That's my only sticking issue, is I like to see sidewalks, that's, other than the other
If you-
things.
Let's just
Do
take
we-
how many people want sidewalks?
I do.
I do.
I think it's
And
helpful.
we know that the police chief has asked for them,
Yeah.
and we realize that. Do we have other issues that we have to do? So
We've
we
got
can-
lots of issues.
I think.
No,
like
I
five.
really don't think so. I think town council has told us where we need to deliberate. I think the biggest thing for me is to get over the open space aspect of it. You were asking for a waiver, obviously, as part of the consideration of giving us that, I would say that we would grant you, we'll grant you the waivers, the ones that, and do it conditionally. And the other thing is, I know, I don't wanna get into host agreement, because that has nothing to do with us, but I feel that as an open space plan, it needs to stand on its own, so that when this is signed and recorded, that we get the money for the open space. Is that an issue?
It'd be part of the agreement of
Part
open
of
space
it,
permit.
As conditions of approval.
Yeah, and we've talked about that, and we agree that that's appropriate, that the 50,000 that we talked about before in the HCA would come out, and if we all agree on the design type and criteria, that, yeah, the 100,000 would be at your discretion, and we would pay it, I think, within 30 days of the appeal period.
What about, that's the other issue,
Yeah, I have one.
from making sure we have all the easements
Oh, yeah,
marked, is that all set?
That, we have to have all of that done before we even sign it. That'll be a condition of approval.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that I think it sets a precedent. You know, we know you have to deal with the lease, well, so be it, and we don't have control over it. We're assured that it'll be dealt with. But the way the open space bylaw is written has been interpreted consistently, has been no more damage or detriment than traditional. And the traditional plan you have was 2 additional house lots over both the open space lots. And what I see for not setting a precedent is that either you have to show on the traditional, you can put in 2 more lots, or in open space plans, you remove 2. So it's no more detrimental.
Can I address
So the
that?
number, it isn't completely the number of house lots, but is always included that.
Yeah, so we did go through a preliminary subdivision. And when we went through the preliminary subdivision, which was voted for 5-0, we didn't just vote for the preliminary subdivision. We also went through every criteria, including the calculation of the number of house lots.
They did
So,
that.
so the way you've interpreted the zoning bylaw in the past actually is not how it's written. So we went through actually how it's written, and it came out that 27 house lots would be approvable under your zoning bylaw. And you all agreed 5-0. And I, you know, I think it's on the record, and we'd ask you to stick to that.
Yeah, but Don, to your point.
Help me understand better. What is being submitted before us as the definitive traditional one has the number that's 2 more than the open space one. Does it not? Am I missing
No,
something
the
here?
open space has 2 more
Then the
than the
conventional.
conventional.
Right, right. Okay, so,
So-
but this is what's submitted as definitive, and I think that is what we're looking at for the open space bylaw. What am I missing? You said we all approved something. Was this preliminary? Was this?
Yeah, in the preliminary, and in
Right,
fact,
but the definitive has less, does it not?
yeah, so the conventional subdivision,
Had 27.
the conventional subdivision has 20,
So we put up the 2 of them.
has 19 lots. And the open space has 22 lots.
But originally, you showed us a plan that had 27 lots, the conventional.
What we did was we showed you the math from your zoning
Right.
bylaw would allow
27
27.
lots. Right, remember? They did it from the math standpoint rather than actual, that's how they got
But
it.
it's preliminary, but it isn't what's being submitted.
I thought the whole point as the open space was that you could fit 27 in a smaller footprint to preserve more open land, not
Yes.
less lots.
Yes, right.
So why does your math have to do with lots?
Because the preliminary, I mean, the open space shows 2
He
more.
has to he demonstrates the lots per the map, but the open space isn't designed to reduce his number of lots. It's designed to give him more density.
So it's.
Right, traditionally it's been more density, but it's also traditionally the way it's been interpreted. I think in every case, it hasn't been more house lots.
I mean, this board's interpreted.
Yes.
No
in the
less,
past, For the open
no
space
less
bylaw.
detrimental.
Don, in this case, we've approved 27, and he's only putting in 22.
In the preliminary, right?
Right.
Yeah, but he's
But-
only putting in
But
22.
what I'm trying to do is compare apples to apples. We have 2 definitive plans, right? And these are not preliminary, these are definitive.
So this was the preliminary plan.
Mhm.
Okay, so, it's almost, the open space plan that you approved in the preliminary is almost identical to this plan. And you approved it based on, there's a formula in your zoning bylaw that, where you take the total amount of area, you subtract, the wetlands plus 15%, you swing a chicken over your head and you can't remember it off the
27.
top of
Right.
your head.
There's a formula.
You come
Yeah,
up
so-
with 27.
All right, so it could be 27, it's gonna be 22. Well, that's where we're at.
When you compare things, is it way back to preliminary or is it to
No, it's-
definitive conventional?
No, they gave us a preliminary conventional that could have shown 27. They could have done it on the plan.
But what we have before us are actually three sheets, conventional, as submitted, and then two open space ones. And don't we compare those, not way back, the
We're-
preliminary?
We can't go back to the less detrimental, as town council has been telling us. We have to go by what's on those two plans. And we've all agreed that the open space is the plan that we want to see.
No, we're trying to get there, I'm saying.
We're
I
getting
see
there,
this
and it's
as
going to
an
have two
issue.
more lots than the conventional configuration, than that conventional.
Right, and just to get back to what you're saying, it's the dimensions, you try to cluster things together. That's why open space plan, you can reduce the dimensions, the required dimensions that are needed in the conventional, so you can put them closer together. An idea so you get more open space. In this case, we don't get open space, or another $50,000 being thrown out, but we're saying sort of a strange precedent.
100,000.
Don, would you rather him
50
just
over
cut the
what?
road all the way through to Gritsville? That's where he's getting the other two lots.
I'm trying to find a way the open space works without saying an odd precedent.
We in the past would never, when we had two plans, they both had to have the exact same lots, okay?
Mhm.
Town council has informed us that we cannot go with the less detrimental, our less detrimental interpretation. So they are allowed to say they either go the 21 or the 19 lots.
Okay, whatever is no less detrimental with regards to wastewater treatment. They both have the same wastewater treatment. That isn't the issue,
We-
it's two plans.
Can't hang our hats on the less detrimental as far as restricting the lots, because in a conventional plan, if they had taken our calculation that's in our bylaw, they could have had 27. So as long as they're less than 27, we have to go by that. So they're at 20.
Okay, where I have a problem is that trying to compare things, you would think they would take the preliminary and then develop
But in the
conventional
old,
and
the
definitive.
problem is, in the old
And that
days,
is what would be compared.
in the old days, the septic system drove the design and everything else. Now we're stuck in the same thing again. We're not looking at septic, they're proposing
But
two
but
more
I'm
lots.
not addressing septic at all.
The point is they can get 27, they're asking for 22, it's below what there is. The interpretation of less detrimental is different.
Can we vote on
So-
a
So we
Well,
need,
conventional or?
wait,
I think what we need to do is probably define this better if this is an issue. If
we
not
need to
here,
redo our
later.
bylaw
Yes.
later, exactly, that's exactly what I said, that's why we're scheduling. But as far as what they're proposing, they're meeting the intent, if I'm not correct, of how our bylaw is read. It's not what we intended to do it, but it's the way that it has to be interpreted from now on until we change something. That as long as they're under 27, they're within their right to put
Okay,
them.
and my impression.
I get
having-
it. You agree-
Having
you and I
sat through a
agree.
lot of these, that it's been interpreted differently,
And
separate from the wastewater issue, and how many things
now
you
we're being
compare.
told that it has to be interpreted that way. As long as the conventional had 27 per our calculation, and the open space is less than that or less detrimental, then we have to go with that.
You would think if they're getting two additional lots, building lots, then maybe there'd be more supplement
But they could
on
have
the
had,
open space.
they could have had, well, that's what I'm saying, 100,000.
Maybe more than what's being offered. Two additional lots, 150,000.
I think 100,000 is quite reasonable. I don't know how the board, what do you guys think?
I thought we have
100,000?
already gone over this. You
Well,
just
that-
made a proposal, now you're going back on it again.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I just want to make sure that I'm not speaking for the whole board. I just had 10 minutes.
Change something all of a
No,
sudden?
I want to keep it at 100,000 as they
not what I
I
suggested.
say we move to end debate on this.
Well, I want to
and
close the
approve it.
hearing very quickly.
Go
I just want
ahead.
to make sure we don't have any more issues out there. We can't, we're okay with the connection, we have no say in it. At the very least, we can send a letter to the
Well, I think
ZBA.
politically, we should make a statement that
Okay.
it's not our purview
Okay.
to the rest of the town. We should put a letter in the paper and say
We're
it's
good.
on the ZBA's head.
We're-
It's their decision. They can do
We're-
what they want.
we're
We
good
did
with-
our job, we're done.
Okay, we're good with the open space, we're gonna conditionally approve it, subject to the $100,000, and we'll have Myron work on with town council the
Sounds great.
special permit conditions.
Right. You raised the issue about sending a letter, which may be outside, but if you're doing that, well, I suggest not only a letter to the ZBA, ask them to deny, but also to the selectmen to actually support the building inspector, zoning enforcer, and his interpretation.
I think we should close the
They've
hearing
got
and discuss
meetings
that
scheduled, public meetings for that.
at the next meeting when we,
I think
well,
communicating to them has to go before they meet again. So, you just introduced that part.
all right, well, I'd like to, we kind of kicked this around. I'd
We've got a
like,
couple more issues. Bonding requirements for a subdivision. You usually, the town prefers a cash bond. That should be mentioned inside the public hearing.
yeah.
If it turns out that this subdivision is served by a wastewater treatment facility, you need a condition regarding easements,
That's
so
what-
that the
that's what
future
we're talking.
homeowners are protected.
Mhm.
Those are the only things that you haven't.
All right, I'd like to open it up, since we have a full house here, to ask some questions before we consider closing it. Mr. Simone.
Thank you. Chris Simone, 18 Sawyer Road. A couple questions for the board, and then just one through the board to town council. First, I'm glad to hear we're separating the funds from the general mitigation scheme that's set up, because I think it's largely recognized in towns. I think the judgment's great as to how you're approaching it from that perspective. The $1 million nowhere near covers the ongoing operating imbalance to the town that is being proposed. This development in totality equals an operational imbalance to the town perpetually, a significant cost and ultimate tax increase to the residents. It's good that these funds are being separated from that, because that funding scheme is a disaster, whereas this is a little bit more logical. But I wonder, and this could be a question for the town council, by what, and this might sound like a strange question and position for me to take, but by what principle are we kind of shaking down this particular developer for this money? I mean, I'd like to see us get the money, but by what principle are we doing that?
You mean the $100,000?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to advocate for them, believe me, but,
Well, I
but
think-
by what principle do we stand here and say, hey, you're following all the rules, but give us another 100,000?
I think the reason, my reasoning, so since I've been on the board and I've sat through all the open spaces that we've done before, it has always been the intention of the developer and the town to get open space that's usable to the town for a lot of different things. When we did Mary Shepherd, the land in the back was gonna be set aside so that there could be nature walks back there and picnics and things like this. The land that's proposed for this doesn't really have any walking trails contiguous to it. You have to preserve the spotted salamanders, and we don't know what National Heritage is going to do. I suggested as a way to get over that impasse as to whether or not it was really good open space or not, and have us make a decision as to whether or not the open space was viable and desirable for the town to have to rule on whether the open space was good, that I suggested to them that they give the town $100,000. They had suggested 50, and they had it in that host agreement, which I didn't,
Yeah.
this should stand on its own, as you said. I came up with 100. Should it be more? I'd love it to be more, but I think 100 is realistic for what's being proposed out there and what ultimately we're trying to accomplish.
But how do we as a town make that determination? You could be right, 100 could be right, these seem to be willing to pay it, so maybe everybody's happy. But as a town, how do we arrive at such logic and figures? And for town council, perhaps, through the chair, I would ask, how do we manage, collect, account for, and disperse those funds?
I think well, I'll let you, I think it's more of like a mitigation issue more than anything else.
They're buying us dinner.
No, not.
No, I think it's, the board has expressed a concern that the open space proposed in this plan is not adequate, at least informally, as this board looks at it, and that's one of the things they look at. So this developer said, okay, I understand you have a problem with the quality of the open space. There's nothing we can do with the open space we're offering, it is what it is, but we can enhance our application by a gift so that the town can enhance other open space. So it's this developer enhancing his application.
No, but I understand, but you understand the perception by the public, and that is that a gift is being given because there's a need for it and the financial capability to give it. And the next time there's a need for it and a developer with the capability to give it, there'll be an ad hoc kind of random process by which the amount is decided. That doesn't make us comfortable, not the principle, not the process.
Well, there's two, remember, they're acting on two applications here. There's an open space plan and there's a definitive subdivision. They have to act on both. Let's assume both are approved. The developer can choose to build the definitive and not give the town anything. Or he can choose to build the open space where he's agreed to give a certain amount of money. So it's in his hands.
And the other side that you didn't address, though, is, so the gift is given, then what? How do we,
But we've gotten gifts in the past. We've gotten the White
Yeah.
Street. We got a gift of land.
Yeah.
We got it, we gave it to conservation. We get Gristmill, the Gristmill property you're talking about. We got a gift of land from the original DeCarlo when he originally did it. We have that 5 acres by the pond that was gifted. It's no different. The only difference is that it's actually cash, that we can actually do something with what we have. But it could have been land. He could take the 100,000 and buy us open space with that if he chose to. We could go
but
that
putting
way.
aside the principle and the process argument, just saying, okay, so there it is, the cash is given. Where does it go, and how do you accomplish? I know it's not, you're not gonna make that part of it, obviously, we're gonna follow financial accounting standards, and there's this process, I'm actually just asking for education,
Yeah,
on how that will be handled.
Yeah, there's a simple answer to that. Number one, we get it in cash, so it goes in the bank. It is held by the accountant in a reserved appropriation account, which only town meeting can spend from. Okay, so it would be available for the stated purpose of open space, and town meeting would be able to appropriate out of that fund for open space purposes. So let's say at a future town meeting, we're looking to acquire a much sought-after piece of open space that suddenly comes on the market. We could have, among the funding sources, this $100,000 in cash together with community preservation fund monies perhaps, or borrowing authority or something. But that it would be held in the bank and available for town meeting appropriation.
And so it's held for open space, and open space is defined by this 173-100, is that,
No.
what defines what
No,
open space
the
means?
town defines what's open space. We
Well,
could
there's-
buy
He just said to buy open space. It
So what is
could-
open-
it
what
could
is-
be
When
to make
making,
a-
so you're comparing two different things.
Okay.
When making the decision on the open space that's shown on this plan for this application, they use 173-100. That tells them their decision criteria. If the applicant decides to enhance his application with a gift of money, it'll be restricted or not restricted as the applicant sees fit and the planning board sees fit. So it'll go into, it can be used for active recreation, it can be used for passive recreation, it can be used for both, it can be used to construct basketball courts, so it depends on what restrictions are or are not on the gift.
Tom, how
And
does,
that's totally up to this board to decide.
excuse me,
That was one of our conditions.
how does this relate to linkage, which is a common term used in, linkage?
Yeah, I like to think of this as
This is not legal.
something a little different.
Yeah,
Anyone
because
else,
it's under the open space bylaw.
anyone else have any questions back there? Yes, ma'am. Name for Mara?
Vera Cohen, Newtown Road. I'm not sure why you are granting the waivers you're granting when, the 750 feet, I think, is what the cul-de-sac road is supposed to be, and you're allowing it at 1,200, and various other things like that. Why is that?
The reason we're contemplating that waiver is because the conventional plan that they show before us shows a loop back, and all the residents in Gristmill do not want a second means of egress into Gristmill, so they want the cul-de-sac. And the original plan showed a second emergency access out of that. Fire department wanted to see the circle, so this has been a
Give and take.
a give and take between the fire department, the residents up there, the developer, and us. I'll be the first to tell you, I was never really thrilled about extending it past the 750. but I can understand why the residents,
It's the
don't wanna
lesser
see
of
a
the two evils.
second way in, and I think for this one, it actually kinda does make sense to go that route.
Are there other waivers that you've also given?
They're asking for some dimensional, the other waivers they're asking for is fencing on stormwaters, which we grant all the time. We're not gonna waive the sidewalks, I don't believe. I think that's really the only real waiver they're asking for. Correct me if I'm wrong,
The location of the street trees.
yeah, which we do all the time.
Right.
We usually try to keep the indigenous trees wherever possible. They have a better chance of lasting, so we usually put a condition of approval that it's to the to the planning board's approval, and they come in with some sort of landscaping plan before they cut everything down to kind of show us what they're gonna do with that, so
That's
they're not
really-
really asking for anything that most developers don't ask for,
That's really,
other than the length of the road.
yeah, the fence around the retention pond,
We never,
that's something that,
we normally don't do
yeah,
that one.
we don't do that.
So
Place
that's-
to put a ramp on to
The
ride your
road,
bike up into the
the road
pond.
is the only thing that we haven't,
That's
that we normally
Close and
don't
go.
waive, but this one kind of makes sense, because the other alternative is not something I don't think the residents up there want.
They cut back on the streetlights, but that's, it still has adequate lighting, it looks like.
So given that there might, at some point, be residents in some part of Littleton that would prefer a lot next to them, who would prefer not to have it developed, is there anything that is going to stop a developer?
Well, that's what kind of why we were talking about in the future, we're gonna have to do something to, now that we have these shared plants coming online, the planning board and the selectmen and the board of health and, the ZB, we're gonna have to sit down and come up with some guidelines as to what's gonna happen in the future. This is new territory for us all now.
The engineer just handed over a lighting plan.
It shows where the lights.
It shows you the lights over here.
Any other, yes, in the back, sir. Your name for Mara?
Hi, I'm John Flint. I live at 72 Gristmill Road. I just wanted to understand, there were two open space plans proposed, one with a cul-de-sac and one with a T with
And this is the circle, the cul-de-sac right there with the circle for the fire department to go around.
but last week we were looking
You
at
wanna see
another
it?
one.
No,
There's
they,
a T.
they had changed, at the last meeting, they went from the T to this. This has been the one.
Okay, so the T is out.
No. Fire department would rather see this. And
That's what I want to hear.
anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Christy Alman, 64 Gristmill Road. I just wanted to say, because I know there's a lot of conversation that's been going on, and I've moved into the neighborhood, ironically, in the midst of all of this. I missed the beginning. That as a new resident with a preschool child, and yes, we do have sidewalks in Gristmill, but they do cross right from where John lives on 72, which is that same corner for egress. I just wanted to say thank you for really working to make the open space plan work, because it makes a big difference to the neighborhood of Apple Dior and the traffic that goes through there and all the families that live there. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting so much effort into that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, well, does the board want to close the hearing?
Yes.
And-
Move to
Yes,
close.
there is one more thing. The open space, will it have any deeded public access to it?
That's gonna be up to National Heritage, correct?
Yes, in the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably gonna end up going to conservation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna be under their jurisdiction more than ours. That's even more reason why we.
You know, in fact,
If they're willing to
they wanted
accept
us
it.
to extend the hearing until after your decision was issued.
Okay.
And we really can't resolve those issues with Natural Heritage and the Conservation Commission until you're done.
Are you in active conversation with access, public access? Is that one of the
Yes.
points of conversation
It
with
is.
them?
And you have room to put an easement into that land, don't you?
Yeah, we're talking with Conservation.
We've actually proposed a trail.
And just worthwhile as a note for the Cobb development, which had 14 houses, not only do they have these by Salamander Habitat preserved separately, but they gave a lot of land plus a $75,000 endowment to maintain trails on that buildable land.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I will
Second.
Second.
Oh, wait, town council?
So just as a point of
Order.
closing is fine. Please make it subject to receipt from the applicant of enhancement to the
Yeah,
application. if
we
that's
need
what's
the
gonna
language
happen.
and everything for town council to take a look at before we vote on it and vote the conditions, so hopefully we can get this all worked out by the 14th.
Sure.
Is that doable?
Great.
Good?
I will move to
So
close,
close subject to the receipt
Here.
from them.
Receive of all the.
subject to exactly what Tom just said.
Close subject to the receipt of any amendment to the application that the developer chooses to file.
All in
Third.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. No, we're not gonna, we're gonna vote later. We close the hearing. We're gonna deliberate on, we're gonna deliberate on the 14th. Thank you.
Are we done
We're done. I think.
for the night?
No, we have one other.
They were at the ZBA on the 14th, so I think that's their, same thing there.
Just give you the whole.
No, I was with Rico on
And now the second house on the S50.
The easement language, they need the open space covenant draft form, and they need your language. It's for the access to wastewater treatment plant plus all the other infrastructure.
Hey, Richie, what else do we have to do?
No, it's in draft language according to the
It is.
I'll make sure I work
The cover letter should say this is the same.
Hey, Richie.
Document submitted to the conservation.
What else do we have?
All right, you want to clear the room so we can hear each other talk?
Why don't if you want to write a letter, that's an important letter. We'll talk about it at our next meeting. What do you want to say, individual?
Just let her meet Monday.
Great job.
Selectmen meeting Monday and questions.
Well,
That's what my concern.
right, the appeals board,
You tell me that after I order the good.
one of the waivers is requested.
Access to wastewater treatment plant plus the easement to the infrastructure.
All right, so Mama, why don't you put together a letter about accessory use, that we don't, we strongly would like to weigh in on it, with the feel that the planning board was. When I went back, we can look at those things. That we need to, I want to tell you that we would like another look at this, but unfortunately.
On OT, go.
Everybody let it do the corrections and then send it out for Monday. We need it for Monday.
Select meet Monday. CBA 14, already posted there.
But we can send them, we've already sent them the letters and Tom's letters, we can send them a letter that, that reiterates that.
Reiterate what Roland said.
Right, but there is a waiver request, and CBA is considering granting a waiver that overrides Roland's concerns.
Right, so looking at the legal memo that Tom sent to Sherry September 11th, 2000.
Which he basically says, you don't even have to speak to
No,
it.
but we can ask them, we can advise them.
We can ask them to
That's
speak.
what we're referring
But I know, but they can either.
They can say yes or no.
Or say nothing.
Well, spotlight it and put the pressure upon
So
them.
let's
Yeah.
send them, the
In which
selectmen a
case,
memo
by
letter.
saying nothing, they
All
support
right,
it.
so why don't you send it out to us, let us tweak it if we need to,
Ask them to deny it.
and we need to have all our things to you by midday on Monday, how's that? Is that good?
Send it to the
No,
independent.
focus both on the selectmen
All right,
and
so it's got, she's gonna write a letter, she's gonna email it to us, if you have any concerns about it, put it, email it back to her, and we'll get it to the selectmen by noon time on Monday. Is that good?
Thanks for your efforts.
Don't you, I've said,
Mark, I would, she's gonna do a letter, have her send the letter out to all of us.
She's emailing all of us.
All right,
All
thanks.
of us.
And then, and any comment each of us has, will be incorporated into the letter.
By Monday.
Right. Now, we want to appoint,
Right now, we just
one
gotta,
of the
Grin and Bear.
attend that meeting,
Well,
to express our
we gotta-
concerns in
Gotta
person.
get on board to make sure that they just,
I don't think,
so we get some protection from it and look
I don't
at
think I can go Monday.
where the
Wanna go on?
value of the project. So
Monday night.
All right, then I'll try to go Monday.
can we close the meeting?
Yes, where are you going? Crossroads. All right,
Crossroads, you're not gonna go to the pub?
no, let's go to Crossroads. Yeah.
Barrett, are we done?
We need to change our bylaw. We got
2 acre
caught-
zoning.
We got caught with
No,
our
here's
pants
the
down when
choice.
when the Board of Health took off the moratorium, there was nothing we could do. You know, we could try to fight with town council said it was standing, and that's why I wanted to hear.
That's something more health has to deal with. If they don't, there may be parts we can deal with. But the open space bylaw, I think we need to
We
shore
need,
up.
we
as
need to
well.
shore it up so that when we get that less detrimental, we have to spell out what it means. We have to change it, that's what we
Be
have.
explicit.
Without, something's always been.
Well, now we have to do something else.
That's what I'm,
We're
that's
gonna have to,
what
we're gonna have to put in the thing that we have the right to ask them to perk the lots.
2 acre zoning, baby.
You're never
No,
gonna
it
get
isn't
2
2 acres.
acres.
2 acres is not good.
There's no way you're gonna, there's no way.
You're never gonna get 2 acres.
maybe we can take out a way.
Well,
we
we
have to
have
sit
to
down.
go and survey around different towns,
We're gonna have
a
to-
couple of
We're
towns.
gonna have to tighten up our bylaws, is what we have
Because
to do, because
otherwise,
as soon as it's coming.
down the drain.
If they know.
That's what we start talking about on the 28th. We have to, we have to
probably a way to
for the
play it
28th. We're
down.
gonna start, it's not gonna be this one.
That's the other thing you do, is restrict the allotments, even if they do go sewer, you restrict the allotments.
Well, we gotta get rid of that stupid,
What does that mean, restricted?
So even if you have sewer, right, you can only get so many allotments per road that's attached to this, because the plant's not indefinite, like, you can't just put, you can say, oh, hey, we'll only let you have
What about Lawrence County?
50% of the capacity allotments, otherwise.
So I say go ahead with the agreement. No. What I'm saying is, we do have an advisory. Here we have.
The only thing I tell you is, you
Enforcement.
look, the only reason why this works
Why
is
don't
because
we
it's
go back to us before the select?
we have.
an entity.
No, but
They
even
weren't
more explicitly
contiguous.
before the,
We-
still the hearing open for the host community agreement. And why not, let's just put some pressure upon them, say, okay, this isn't good, and we're saying this is our best advice.
We've already,
That says we agree with Roland, well, because they have,
Well, that's okay, but we can say, well, we still
and they showed their access. That's all they have to do is put a lot, so we can't.
we can't be found out.
The,
well, they can't.